She was just 20 years old and her dream was to be a caregiver. Chaithanya, the third-year nursing student, was cremated today. Daughter of a farmer, her education was the sole objective of her family. They did everything within their means and often out of their means to make it happen for her. But Chaithanya was subjected to humiliation and mental harassment, forcing her to die by suicide. NDTV is on ground, joining our family and friends in their fight for justice. It's our campaign. First up, the story, and then we go to Shreya, who is joining us from Kasaragod.
അവൾക്ക് നല്ല മാറ്റം ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ ഡോക്ടർ തന്നെ പറഞ്ഞു മോൾക്ക് മാറ്റം വരുന്നുണ്ട്, അതുകൊണ്ട് നമുക്ക് ഒരുപക്ഷെ ചിലപ്പം പിടിച്ചു കയറാൻ പറ്റുമെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞായിരുന്നു. അത് കഴിഞ്ഞപ്പോഴാണ് പെട്ടെന്ന് പനി വന്നത്, ന്യൂമോണിയ പനി വന്നിട്ട് അവിടെ പിന്നെ ഒരു 3-4 ദിവസത്തേക്ക് പനി തന്നെയായിരുന്നു.
Three days on, Chaithanya's mother mourning her child. Team NDTV is in Kasaragod to get justice for Chaithanya. Chaithanya, a third-year nursing student from Kottayam, she studied at the Manzoor Hospital and School of Nursing. Her father, a farmer, spent all he had to put her through nursing school. Her 2 siblings couldn't even complete their education. She died on Saturday after 3 months in coma.
वो पासी लगाए, पासी में होगा ना इसका लगाया, उसको थोड़ा उसका दोस्त लड़की लोग देखा, उसका झगड़ा वो रोता है, बाद में वो कॉल का देखा, वैसे ऐसा हो गया. अब उसका ऊपर एक्शन लगाने बोला, हॉस्पिटल वाले के ऊपर एक्शन लगा रहा है.
December 7th, what should have been an ordinary day turned into a nightmare for Chaithanya Kumari. She returned late to the hostel after a medical checkup, reportedly feeling unwell. That's when an argument broke out. Her family alleges that the warden, Ranjani, denied her food and water. Hours later, Chaithanya attempted to die by suicide in her hostel room. She was rushed to a hospital in Mangaluru and later shifted to multiple hospitals before finally passing away in Kottayam.
झगड़ा किया इसका साथ, इसके लेके गया उसका है हॉस्पिटल क्यों लेके गया, हमको तो नहीं बोला, ऐसा झगड़ा किया उसका साथ. अगर इसका मारने के लिए गया लड़की के साथ, बच्चे के साथ. वो बहुत बात नहीं करता, वो ऐसा वाले है, कुछ बोला रोता है, ऐसा वाले बहुत ताकत वाले नहीं है, बहुत मुश्किल है वो वाला,
सेंसिटिव है.
हाँ सेंसिटिव है.
The police have now filed a case against the warden for intimidation, but say the case currently stands as unnatural death, not abetment to suicide. The probe is still on. Meanwhile, students allege that hostel rules were extremely strict. They were denied vacations and barred from using mobile phones. The institution, which covered her hospital bills of 20 lakh, is reportedly trying to settle the matter.
ഡിസംബർ 7-ാം തീയതിയാണ് ഈ സംഭവം നടന്നത്. ആ സമയത്ത് തന്നെ പോലീസ് അവിടെ എത്തിയിരുന്നു, അവർ ഇൻഫർമേഷൻ തന്നു. അവർ ആർട്ടിഫിഷ്യൽ റെസ്പിറേഷനൊക്കെ കൊടുത്തതാണ്. പക്ഷെ അവിടുന്ന് രക്ഷപ്പെടുമെന്നുള്ള ഒരു കണ്ടീഷനിൽ മാംഗ്ലൂരിലേക്ക് അവർ മാറ്റി. ഞങ്ങൾ 2-3 ദിവസം കഴിഞ്ഞ് അമ്മയുടെ പരാതി പ്രകാരം, ഓമന എന്ന അമ്മയുടെ പരാതി പ്രകാരം ഒരു FIR രജിസ്റ്റർ ചെയ്തു. അത് ആത്മഹത്യാ പ്രേരണയ്ക്ക് അത് രജിസ്റ്റർ ചെയ്യണമെങ്കിൽ ആ കുട്ടി മരിച്ചാൽ മാത്രമേ ആത്മഹത്യാ പ്രേരണയ്ക്ക് FIR രജിസ്റ്റർ ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടി സാധിക്കൂ. ഈ 2 FIRലും ഞങ്ങൾ ഇൻവെസ്റ്റിഗേഷൻ നടത്തിയിട്ടുണ്ട്. പക്ഷേ ഓൺലി ഹിയർസേ എവിഡൻസ് മാത്രമേ ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് കിട്ടിയിട്ടുള്ളൂ. 2-3 അവരുടെ റൂംമേറ്റ്സ് അവരുടെ ഹോസ്റ്റൽ വാർഡിനെതിരെ മൊഴി തന്നിട്ടുണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ ഇവൾ എന്തെങ്കിലും സംസാരിക്കുമോ എന്നുള്ള പ്രതീക്ഷയിലാണ് ഞങ്ങൾ അതിൽ കുറച്ച് നീട്ടിക്കൊണ്ടുപോയത്, എന്തെങ്കിലും ഒരു എവിഡൻസ് കൂടുതൽ കിട്ടുമെന്നുള്ളത്. പക്ഷേ കിട്ടിയിട്ടില്ല.
For now, the hostel warden remains off duty but not under arrest. The police say they are still gathering evidence, but for the grieving family of Chaithanya, justice still remains uncertain. As the questions of institutional accountability grow louder, the question remains, will this case lead to real change, or will Chaithanya's story add to the ever-increasing statistics of student suicides in India? Only time will tell. With camera person Xavier, this is Shreya Ghosh for NDTV.
and I'm going to go straight to Kasaragod, where Shreya is joining us live. Shreya, it's certainly a very tough day for the entire family and the friends of Chaithanya. Get us some voices. We want to know what were her plans like, what was she talking about, her dreams. She was just like any other girl. Any of us?
Well, of course, she was just a 20-year-old student who wanted to become a nurse, and she was the only child in the family who got formal education. She's survived by her brother, but of course the financial condition of the family is such, they belong to a very humble background, and therefore the younger brother cannot afford to get a formal education. So it definitely, it's a appalling case, but it definitely raises a lot of questions about student welfare. And to discuss that in detail, I'm joined by some of these students of Central University of Kerala, and I'll ask you the question about Chaithanya first. What do you think? Why is this justice being delayed at this point?
Actually, it is the problem of our system, which is always delaying the justice in case of students or any victims. So the process want to be speeded up. And when we come to the case of students, here at the Central University of Kerala, 2 students suicided last year. But even after the suicide, the police only came after 2 days. We can see that even the suicide is also normalized in this society. So actually, even the students near also, they are also, when the suicide is happening and the ambulance is coming, people are going to have canteen, to go to canteen to have food at the same time. They just don't mind what is happening near this. Actually, the mindset of the youth is changed. And the government have very crucial role in it. They have to do something on it.
Right. We do see an ever-increasing student suicide rate, but that raises questions about mental health interventions. What do you think about these private nursing institutes as well? The rules are quite strict there. And do you think there are enough counseling sessions that are provided?
Actually, now it is not properly provided itself. When I take in the case of Central University of Kerala itself, only 2 months before the mental health physician was available. All these days, last year 2 suicides happened. Only after that, the physician and the mental health doctor was appointed. We can see that. Only after the issue is only people are being appointed. So government is not priorly thinking about this or children's welfare anytime. So that is the main problem behind it.
Right. And also we see a lot of issues in the women's hostels, particularly the kind of moral policing that take place not only in Kerala but in the northern states as well, in universities like Delhi University, JNU. What do you have to say about that?
Actually, we want to increase our mental stress, and we have to talk about the mental stress issues, especially on the girls. According to the Central University of Kerala, psychologist is here, but I don't know
But about the hostels, what do you think the role of the warden is? Because, you know, in the hostels, people want to feel at home, away from home. And the warden plays a very big role. And in this case, in Chaitanya's case, we have seen allegations of the warden, subjecting Chaithanya to severe harassment. And she is being accused at this point. But right now, she has not been arrested. What do you think the role of the warden is?
Actually, I think the warden must be like a family want to be, but in Central University of Kerala, I think the wardens are like our mom, and we are actually proud of our wardens. And I don't know what about
Actually, in that case, there want to be a change in attitude of wardens. While a student is delayed for paying fees, we have to ask in two ways. Why didn't you pay a fees? You want to pay immediately. That is one method.
So it adds a lot of mental pressure on students. Yeah. Your last word on justice for Chaithanya. What do you think the way forward should be?
I think the warden should be arrested, and proper action should be taken against the warden and against the institution also, because a girl who has a lot of ambitions, she has to succeed in her life. She doesn't come to the institute just to suicide, right?
So also considering that this child belongs to a very humble background, father is a farmer, she's the only student who got formal education. Do you think the fact that she belongs to a poor family is being misused by the institution?
That was the system in past few years, but in my opinion, the system in higher education should be changed, and system are there and it should be well executed, and they should format and student-centric approach from the universities and also even from the government. Then only the inner self of the students will be well wished in the universities rather than doing student academic pressure or any other pressures on students.
Right. Thank you so much for speaking to NDTV. We will continue to track the investigation of, the Chaithanya suicide case. Right now, we know the police officers are trying to get as many voices as possible, the statements as much as possible. They've already received 2 testimonies of students, and now they're trying to get more, eyewitnesses. Their record, and only then they will alter the charges to abatement of suicide. But for now, we know that the warden is scot-free, and there has not been any arrest. Back to you.
All right. Thank you for getting us those voices there, Shreya. Let me bring in the guests now. Manisha Gupta is the director of Hostel movie. Aarti is a psychologist and also an author. C.B. Sharma is professor of education. And we also have Sanjay Sahai, former ADGP of Karnataka. Aarti, I'm beginning with you. I mean, there is no action per se in this particular case that we know about now from the ground, where her tormentor has been in many ways let go. The fact is that she understood the burden of expectations which was coming from within the family. Daughter of a farmer, the entire money was spent on her education. She had to fulfill those dreams. And despite of all that, she decided to end her life. Where do you think we all failed her?
So I'd like to set it in context. So the teenage brain, see, I'm not taking this one case alone. I'm saying the teenage brain is generally more vulnerable than any other age. And it is difficult for a teenager. Until 26, we consider that teenage. Till that age, they are not able to access the problem-solving part of the brain as much as an adult would be able to do this. Secondly, the emotional regulation component here was also something that she was probably not trained, because, we are taught to repress, suppress emotions and things like that. So here in the context, though I don't know exactly what kind of torture or torment or whatever she was going through, I do have to place on record that when there is a very strict system and the person is not allowed to be heard, see, most of us want to be seen, want to be heard, and want to be understood. Somewhere, this young girl did not have an opportunity for that. And from what I read of the whole case, she was denied food. She was probably also unwell and things like that. So when you ask me how have we failed her, I think it's a complete, like many of the students also mentioned, it is at the system level where we think that if you are in a position of power, you can use that power to abuse anybody. And I think that's where the whole problem arises. And the child did not know how to sort of face emotional abuse. This is chronic or acute form of emotional abuse that the child has been, I'm saying child because I still feel that she didn't have the skills required to regulate through this, how to deal with an emotional abuse of this nature. So I think that's where we really failed her, because we've not given her, first, the proactive skills, second, the kind of support that would have been required at this situation like this, and third, most importantly, is to understand that in vulnerable ages, we need to deal with them very differently from like how we would deal with somebody at a different age group. Okay. So I hope that sets the context.
Okay. Sanjay Sahai, the nature of investigation, invariably in, deaths by suicide, the nature of investigation is very different. Do you think time has come to revisit the sections in the new laws?
Already too late. So time had come long time back, and I think all of us are aware of the fact as to what has been happening in Kota. And now that evil has spread all around the place. So abatement to suicide is only one part of the story. I think there should be a precursor to abatement of suicide also. There has to be something of a harassment of a nature where the warden, the student, the college management and the hostel, I think this whole caucus has to be broken. For me, it is not a case or an issue wherein a warden or the individual versus individual, Ranjani versus Chaithanya, that is certainly not the issue. The issue is much deeper. And the issue is that suicides have been normalized in this country. Suicides have been normalized in this country, I repeat again. and it is a nexus between college management and the regulatory authorities. College gets affiliation through the government. After getting the affiliation, the management, they put whosoever they feel like. And it is not only with the warden, it is with the teaching. The quality of teaching itself is abysmal. Aspirations go high. I remember a long time back, I think it was somewhere in 1992, 1993, there was a nursing college in the same Mangalore district. We call it Dakshin Kannada. So there in Puttur, I was posted as an ASP. That was my first posting. And there was a college which was coming up, first nursing college in that area, which was coming up. And there were some 40 seats. All the 40 seats were sold out to a broker in Kerala. So I am talking about the year 93, 92, somewhere of that nature. And today we are in 2025. So this nexus. And if a warden, she decides to become a dictator, then there is no college principal, there is no management, there is no government, there is no regulatory authority, there is no oversight, there is absolutely nothing. And if you get into, we have been talking about mental health for quite some time now, inclusive of the Kottayam case. There we have positioned the students versus students. So 3 students harassed 1 student for 3 months. Case has been taken and everything has been done as far as the law is concerned, technicalities are concerned. But the hostel warden used to stay there. His office was right there itself. How do you explain that? I think this whole ecosystem is oriented towards exploiting the students without providing them any reprieve, without providing them any support, and make huge amount of money out of it through a very substandard education and cashing on the aspirational values of our middle class and now less than middle class or the lower middle class or the poor people. That is where we are.
So the question is that we as a society is always prepared to harness what is our strength, which is the youth of the country. But if they are taking up these steps, which is certainly very, very drastic, Professor Sharma, then something has to be done. It has to be done through law, sensitization of the society, and Chaithanya needed that help. The warden was not perhaps doing so. Did the society become a mute spectator because of the power dynamics here? A student versus her warden.
I think Shreya Ghoshal from Kasaragod just now mentioned and asked, would this lead to any change and raising eyebrows, or it will just pass on as yet another case? I believe that's a very, very serious question that a journalist is raising. What happened in the case of Anil Kumar, who committed suicide in IIT Delhi in 2023, or Ayush Ashna, who committed suicide in 2023, let's go back and find out what happened. Nothing happens. The issue actually is what is being raised is that there are too few seats and there are too many aspirants. So it doesn't matter if some students or some community or some people don't take admission or they are thrown out. Nobody cares because there are too many aspirants for too few seats. And the issue that we have been discussing on various platforms, including media, is that the private sector education has become too powerful. It has too much money, and the government is just not able to handle. I must mention this, that your private sector is too powerful. A former Secretary Education mentioned on a public platform that the private sector decides who would be the minister, who would be the secretary, and who would actually be at the helm of affairs. That's a very sad affair of things. And we hear these statements, don't react on them, don't work on them. I think it is important that we raise these issues and find answers to them. When we raise such issues, we are targeted. That should not happen. Imagine Chaithanya, I must mention, a girl from scheduled caste community. Do you understand how difficult it is to bring one girl of scheduled caste to this level? 80 out of 100 girls drop out before joining higher education, and that ratio is still higher in terms of scheduled caste girls. It's so difficult. And this girl commits suicide. I'm sure nothing will happen. Raise this issue 1 year from now and you will find nothing happened. Things were just hushed up. I am very, very upset as an academic that our students lose life and nothing happens. I would make a few suggestions. One is there is no protocol, no guidelines for managing hostels. Who should be a warden? That is very important. I'm not trained to be a warden. I'm a teacher. I'm just given charge of a hostel because I need accommodation. I take wardenship because there is a warden's accommodation. Go to JNU. And you find who becomes a warden. All those new joinees in JNU who want an accommodation and they are not getting, so they take up wardenship. You must examine this, that they are not trained to be warden. So they mess up things. And not because they are deliberately doing, because they are not trained. Globally, Maria, hostels are managed by those who are trained to manage hostels. They are counsel. They know how to handle students. And I have mentioned, I was in a hostel in Britain. Before I took a seat in a hostel, I was counseled how to behave, what to do and what not to do. I had a Pakistani housemate, and out of 6 of us, 3 were women.
Yes.
3 men and 3 women in that hostel.
Professor Sharma, let's get in Manish Gupta as well, because Manish Gupta will be able to explain to us, because after doing that movie on hostels, he would have done all kind of research to understand the challenges, but at the same time, you know, my emphasis is that they are your first responders, you know, the hostel wardens. They understand, they watch you, they are supposed to be watching you, they are supposed to be taking care of you if you are stressed out. In this case, she was. But instead of providing that care, she becomes her tormentor.
Yeah. So I've been saying this for decades, that the central government must create and enforce very strict laws about the treatment of students inside hostels. Because what happens is, in a hostel, there are students who are 16, 17, 18 at a very tender age. They are staying away from their parents. They have nobody to turn to. Suddenly, they are put into this sort of environment where they are sort of trapped, like in a prison, and they have nowhere to go. They are at the mercy of the warden and of senior students. And there is a culture of ragging. Okay, there's a culture of ragging which is very violent, which is mental torture, physical torture, which includes humiliation, sexual assault, all these kind of things. Typically, the warden morally is supposed to curb all this and provide support to the students. But sadly, what happens is, very often, the wardens are callous. They are not concerned. Because they are very used to this kind of thing happening in the hostels, so they turn a blind eye. So they have a very, very cold-hearted and callous attitude towards the problems that students face. So instead of providing them support, they are sometimes they are unconcerned, and in many cases they can be party to the psychological torture that a student faces. The warden can create a sort of pressure, and there can be harassment, all kinds of harassment. So this is very common, and I have met a lot of students who have faced all this. I have met many students who faced harassment from senior students in the form of ragging, and who also faced harassment from the wardens, whether they are male or female. If you watch my film Hostel, it's available on Hotstar, on Amazon, and also on YouTube. I have shown this very clearly. I have shown the warden to being party to the ragging, to the physical kind of ragging that goes on in a hostel. And this is true. I have seen instances of wardens who laugh when students are being ragged by senior students. They're just standing to a side and laughing. So this kind of callous attitude is what causes tragic incidents like these. So the way to solve this is there has to be a very stringent law against ragging. It has to be a very serious law. The central government has to take cognizance of this. Okay, because our youth is at stake, our nation's future is at stake. These are the future, these students are the future of our nation. Okay, so there has to be a very strict law which governs and regulates the behavior of senior students inside a hostel and the warden inside a hostel. That is when students will feel safe. Also, there needs to be some sort of helpline. There is a ragging helpline, but it's of no use. It's just naam ki helpline hai. So there should be a very proper helpline. There could be a police cell, a cell in the police station for students. So basically, a student in a hostel feels very helpless and trapped.
Okay.
They are away from home. They are away from their parents. They have nobody to turn to, and the parents have spent a lot of money to send them to the
That's
hostel.
right. Overall, perhaps a more conducive atmosphere, which is seen as student-friendly, where they can reach out.
There has to be a law. What I'm saying is there has to be a law to ensure that.
Yes, absolutely. Sanjay Sir, I'm coming back to you. In terms of investigation again, Chaithanya Kumari, the harassment happens at the hands of the hostel warden. She ends her life, is in coma for 3 months. The family is traumatized. The girl loses her battle with life, and finally, today she is cremated. I mean, I'm just looking at that smile, which shows so much of hope and optimism, and now it is despair all around. Sanjay sir?
Yeah. So you're talking about abatement to suicide. Ranjani is detained. I think there's some interrogation going on, and tomorrow the case would be changed into, or the sections would be changed to abatement of suicide.
Yes.
She will be arrested, case will be charge sheeted, trial will happen, and might be she is convicted also. But does that solve anything? We are trying our level best to make a macro issue into an extremely micro nano sort of a issue. It is not a battle between Ranjani and Chaithanya. Let me make it very, very clear to you. We are missing out the woods for the trees. The game is totally different. In this case, at least the principle has to go. The barest minimum is principle, and to best of my understanding, and if it is left to for me as an investigating officer, I think the management, lots of people in the management will have to go. So the whole game is between management and the regulatory authorities. When the colleges have to be sanctioned, the government, they sanction the colleges very gleefully without understanding as to what they are creating. These many seats, the management is happy. These many colleges, the government is happy. There is absolutely no regulation. If you feel like, I think the whole Kerala or the whole of this country can be audited, and you'll find difficult to find even one college which fulfills all the norms. We are having a counselor, not having a counselor is a much later issue. And warden or between students and the warden, I think that is not the case. And the students have completely lost faith, not only in the warden, but in the college administration, the regulators, and the whole regulatory mechanism. And there is a complete lack of the support system which should be available in this college. So this is the sort of an ambush which we have created for them, and everybody is trying to extract their pound of flesh. There can be 100 cases, all the cases can be charged, all the accused can be convicted, and they can be given the maximum conviction. But the real culprits are moving scot-free. There are people who are running 30,000 crore industry in Kota. They were advised one simple thing, I think 1.5 to 2 years back, by the local administration to put some fan which will break if there is a weight more than 5 kgs or whatever. They have not even done that. It is a huge mafia which has taken not only the students but the country for a ride, is not only taking their life but bringing us to a very abysmal level of education and expertise which all of us face, even with our doctors and with our nurses.
All right, Sanjay sir, really appreciate your time. CB Sharma, Aarti and Manish Gupta, thank you so much for joining us in this Justice for Chaithanya. In fact, several politicians of Kerala are lending their voice in support of what we see as seeking accountability and answers from authorities in Kasaragod. Here's Union Minister joining our campaign.
Well, Union Minister George Kurian is with me. Sir, a shocking and tragic incident came into light from Kerala where a third-year-old student, a nursing student, died by suicide. There has been demands for justice which is growing on. How do you see the entire
Yes, independent inquiry should be conducted and appropriate action should be taken by the state government.
Sir, some measures needs to be taken in regards to the
Yes,
hostel.
that is why I told that this independent inquiry should be conducted and appropriate action should be taken by the state government.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for speaking. That was George Kurian, Union Minister speaking to NDTV.